What's up, guys? Welcome back to 1.5 Degrees. This week's theme is going to be action cinema from the 80s onwards. Thanks for listening, and as always, post your comments down below. Thank you. Welcome back to this week's episode of 1.5 Degrees. I'm Stu.
I'm Al.
And I'm Matt.
And this week's theme, as mentioned, is going to be about action cinema from the 80s onwards.
However, this week's going to be different as we're going to be asking each other questions, and based on our answers, we're going to be debating who has the most right answer, and we're going to be exploring each other's perspectives on things.
And you guys feel free to post your comments below as to who you think wins each of the arguments that we create when we pose our questions. So, as we mentioned, this is around action cinema. Now, we're going to go one question at a time. As we said before, it's action cinema from the 80s onwards. The first question that I want to pose to you guys is regarding action movie stars. And of course, I want to know, who is your favourite action movie star from the 1980s onwards, and why? Argue your points. Elle, you go first.
Awesome. So, best action movie star. Is it a tall guy? No. Is it an American guy? No. But it is Jason Statham. Jason Statham, in my opinion, one of the best action movie stars. Got in there pretty early with The Transporter, and then he went on to do films like War and Spy, which is itself a comedy. He's shown himself to be versatile in the way he fights on screen, from doing kung fu kicks to simple blocks, using weapons, handle weapons, stuff like that. He's done racing movies with Death Race 3000, I think it was. He's usually a very cool customer. He's very always interesting characters, always interesting methods of acting. He's unflappable, but he does show emotion sometimes. I think he's got versatility and range. He can be funny, for sure. And he looks a very threatening dude sometimes. And to have that...
sometimes.
And to have that, and also can go funny, with, is it Spy with Melissa McCarthy?
Yeah.
It's a very funny movie. He's the
it's
funniest
brilliant.
part of that movie.
It's brilliant.
My argument, Jason Statham, best action movie star.
Okay. All right. Well, that is a good candidate. So we're going to have a tough job here. Matt, how about you?
Now I'm going to wipe the floor with you. Mine is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
It's got to
Of
be. I mean,
course.
have you seen Predator? The lines he delivers, get to the chopper now.
That's really good.
That's got to
really
be.
good. Oh my God.
That,
Amazing.
he's got some of the best lines in all of movie history. You just can't you just can't beat it. You can't. And he's literally One Punch Man.
Okay.
He is great. He's done many action films, but he has done some
Jingle All the Way.
Yeah, he's done other movies like Jingle All the Way. He's done Kindergarten Cop, more of a comedy, I'd argue. He's pretty neat actor. I think he just Jason Statham, no chance.
All right, well, Stu.
Okay, so my choice is the all-American hero that we all beloved, and absolutely, I believe, does trump your guys. Of course, I'm going to say that, with the original Sly Stallone. So Sly Stallone really began his career with Rocky, but the action movie hero was born with John J. Rambo in 1982. Now, First Blood is not the action film that we want to start with. However, when we move into First Blood Part 2, Part 3, Rambo 4, Rambo 5, the list goes on, because in between all that, you've got Cobra, you've got Over the Top, Cliffhanger, Judge Dredd, and then finally, just to trump you guys as the leader of the Expendables trilogy with Sly Stallone, Jason Statham and Arnie fall to side characters in those movies, but we'll go into that a little bit further. But Sly Stallone absolutely has a dynamic range. He's done comedy, he's done the kids films, he voiced a lion in that Adam Sandler movie where he's in the zoo. He's just a fantastic all-rounder, inspirational hero of mine as well.
Don't forget Spy Kids 3.
Spy Kids 3D.
Can I just point out that you mentioned Over the Top, and that's an arm wrestling movie?
Of course.
Nah.
Of course. There is action
not,
and glistening muscles and oil in that film.
Not counting
Plenty
that.
of it. Right, so let's fight it out. Right, I want you to argue your points against each other. and myself. Elle, you go first. Why do you think Jason Statham trumps Arnie and Sly as the best action hero?
Well, muscles are important in action movies, but do you know what else is important? The English language.
I don't believe Jason Statham has a dictionary with him. I don't believe he can speak very clearly. Then again,
I
Sly
would say
can't.
Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, the English. I think I win that one.
You win that one.
I win that one. Also, at the same time, he's working with. He's got less, but he's working harder. Like Sylvester Stallone can throw a punch. We've seen it. Arnold Schwarzenegger can throw a punch. We've seen it. Have we ever seen either of them do a flying kick through the door, knocking out a dude with an axe? It's never happened. It's never gonna happen because they can throw punches all day and flex their muscles. That's good for you. Impressive. You can sit there and flex. That's okay. You can have that.
Yeah, but can Jason Statham lead an ice hockey team in a Batman movie? And I don't think so.
You think you're making a point for your side?
Ice,
Ice to see you, but but
Mr. Freeze for the win.
Okay.
Kick some
but
ice.
Action star. Okay, you can argue maybe Sylvester Stallone, for example. Great boxing movie, great fighting movie, very patriotic and very inspiring as well. He can't speak English, but
Jason Statham can apparently.
Jason Statham, while throwing a wrench at someone, he'll speak English. And you said about the Expendables. I think in that movie with Sylvester Stallone, they're sort of co-leads.
Oh
If you
no!
watch the movie,
No.
he flies. Sylvester Stallone flies the plane, but that's only because I think Jason Statham isn't tall enough to reach the pedals.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
Or maybe because Stallone is so old that everyone else that's under the age of 50 just seems like a baby to Stallone,
Maybe Jason Statham's like, well, let's just give him something to do.
Yeah,
Let's just,
he's old. Let's look
He's
after
old,
him.
Yeah. Oh, your leather
But from
jacket
the
looks
sound-
great, Sly.
But from the sound of his English, he's probably not even qualified. He shouldn't be flying that plane because he sounds drunk.
Yeah,
This is true.
And I'm okay with them having broken English, but it makes for less comprehensive dialogue. If you watch the Transporter, he's a very cool character in that movie, and he's kind of well spoken and he's kind of gruff, but also quite sensitive. I mean, it's a Luc Besson movie. We've talked about this before. It's problems, but but.
You don't get those problems in a Sly movie. He's never moved on any woman, apart from in Demolition Man, where he corners Sandra Bullock in that famous scene where he's about to advance on her.
Yeah, and she rejects him.
But then in the Transporter 3, the 16-year-old girl...
Okay. We're not talking about this. No.
Remember that scene?
I will not. I can't defend that movie. Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah, but actually, you make a point. Actually, getting the girl in the movie... I mean,
That's one of Arnie's traits, though.
is it?
Well...
True lies.
He saves the girl in Predator.
Oh, God.
Gets to the chopper at least.
Yeah, both of your male
And
leads, I don't think
Conan
traditionally get together with the woman.
Oh, well, yeah.
Doesn't he get with the woman in Kindergarten Cop? I
Well,
can't remember her name. What's her name?
In that film, probably... I wouldn't negate that as the best action movie
no.
of Sly by far, of Arnie by far. Stallone, yeah, he gets the girl. Sure. In The Specialist, he pretty much steals Sharon Stone away. And
You can't forget
Rocket.
about Adrian.
Adrian.
yeah, of course. And he has his mother with him in Stop or My Mom Will Shoot.
Yeah, that's definitely...
He gets the girl.
Okay. I'll concede that in 80s movies,
Uh-huh.
there's different
Statham loses.
paradigms that maybe Statham doesn't do as well, but because you need these bulky, strong men. I think as time progresses onwards and time's arrow flies through Hollywood, that Statham is a welcome addition to the cast because he's a short dude, but he's very versatile. He's great. You like seeing him fight The Rock in that movie. It's fine. It's good.
In the Fast and Furious.
Because that's him proving his worth against the biggest dude in Hollywood. And it kind of works, and you would kind of believe it, and it's kind of fun to see them go at it. And Statham, compared to The Rock, is the bad boy in that movie, right?
Yeah, and then they teamed up in the Hobson Shaw spin-off.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of fun.
Which some people call a movie.
Oh, it's amazing. That is amazing.
But I want to see Statham... not Statham. Sylvester Stallone versus Arnie now. I want to see this fight.
I would be down for that.
You've had this in Escape Plan. Did you not see Escape Plan?
I actually
2013.
haven't seen that film.
Yeah, prison movie where it's the first movie where they were sort of in it together, as well as the first Expendables, where there's that short cameo.
But did it turn out that one of them was a genius all along?
I can't even remember. It's very forgettable.
I think Arnold Schwarzenegger engineered the entire situation in Escape Plan, didn't he? Wasn't that the point of the movie? Like one of them engineered, like, I planned for you to get out or something. Wasn't the? Oh no, he planned to.
No. Sly's character is a professional, prison escaper man. That's his job.
Escaper
and
man.
then he meets.
Man, you look at that guy and you think professional
slugger.
Professional anything. Yeah, just.
Yo, I could get out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, no way out of here, you know.
Okay.
You see my doggy?
No, but what I meant was like, why do you think, Stu, that Sly is better than?
I think it's just in terms of tenure. He's had the chance to build up as much as a reputation as someone like Arnie, so he's solid competition in that aspect, particularly in the fact that they were in a well-known war between their films where they would make a movie, well, I've killed 300 people in mine, well, I've killed 400 people in mine, well, I'll kill 500 people. And it was back and forth with Arnie and Sly.
Arnie tricked Sly to make that terrible movie, though.
He did trick him into making Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. But that is a classic. If anyone's not seen that, please go watch it. It's amazing.
Well, let me do a quick fire thing. Okay. Conan versus Rocky.
Conan.
Roky's going to punch his ass out.
No, Conan kill you.
Rocky will maybe hurt you a bit.
Just a bit.
I mean, he's not got a sword, but he could probably punch you in the face.
And then you've got like Rambo versus the Terminator. Who's going to win that? It's an obvious answer.
That's kind of a leading question.
Rambo's going to run through the jungle. He's going to run away from him through the jungle and escape. Remember, he's a professional escaper, so he's going to escape the Terminator.
Let's not go Rambo versus Terminator. Let's go the guy from Demolition Man versus the Terminator.
Well, that again, same thing. I think that
it's a machine, though.
Sly takes that. Sly could freeze himself in time and then just go forward and wait until the Terminator dies, because the Terminators all age and then die now.
Oh, we've seen that happen, right?
We have seen that happen most recently.
I'm not buying that. You should no.
I think in a real life fight, I think Sly as well would actually like trump.
It depend on time span, because at one time wasn't Arnie the strongest man in the world?
He was a bodybuilding champion. He was Mr. Olympia, Mr. Universe.
And Sly.
So far, I'm not seeing any way that you're going to beat me.
Sly trained as a boxer. Sly is virtually a professional boxer at this point. He could KO like any one of us, anyone in the world. I think he's got that. Just to train for then Rocky, and then just to fight with guns as well in all the Rambo movies. He knows how to use any weapon whatsoever. In Judge Dredd, he's got a gun that can literally just do what he wants by talking to it. In Cliffhanger, he can jump up a mountain vertically. Yep. In The Expendables, he can team people together, so he's got a lot of people on his side, including your guys.
He's on LinkedIn, you mean?
Yeah, he's basically he's the LinkedIn of these guys. He started that whole thing.
I feel like we're going towards like a very over-the-top fan fiction right now.
Yeah.
Speaking of over the top,
watch Cliffhanger.
Watch Cliffhanger, yeah, because it's fucking awesome.
Matt, I want to hear some rebuttal. Why is Arnie better?
It's just Arnie. You can't knock it. You can't knock.
Size doesn't matter.
No, I beg
I
to
agree.
differ.
Jason Statham agrees. Jason Statham is with this one.
I will say though, Expendables is disappointing because there's a lack of Arnie in it. In
the first one, film, absolutely.
I think Sly definitely owns that. But no, we'll forget Terminator 3 and all the other Terminators for now. But Terminator and Terminator 2, perfect films.
What makes his action good?
How is he different from Sly and Statham?
He's just Arnie. That's my answer. That's going to be my answer for all of it. It's just Arnie.
You can't mess with quips and Austrian biceps.
Exactly. Okay. Is perfect. He can't speak English that well, but he doesn't trump Jason Statham in that regard.
But patriotism and curly Italian hair. Can you beat that?
Can you beat bald skepticism?
What?
Because he's the coolest bald man, and I am including Bruce Willis in that.
If he was that cool, he would have been Hitman, but no, he's not.
Oh, that would have never worked. He's too angry for Hitman. He's too angry.
Yeah, well, I don't think any of us would want to get into a real fight with any of these guys, especially Jason Statham now, because he has still got youth. But then
definitely now he definitely
still probably wouldn't want to get into a fight with Arnie or Sly.
Sylvester Stallone versus Arnie, but with walking canes.
Oh man,
I
Yeah.
want to see that movie where they're in a home.
They're in a home. Escape Plan 4.
Hey, the nurses are coming. We gotta get out of here. No, I take my meds. Get the fuck out. You go.
Oh man.
Oh boy.
So, final thoughts, I think, for this segment, maybe?
Well, of course, I'm not going to mess with Stallone. He is the all-time heroic hero. He's got the dialogue, he's got the image, he's got the good looks, he's got the body for it. He's been in loads of different franchises where he's been able to pull off this fearful, very eccentric action man. And he's not even the biggest dude. Yeah, he's no Arnie in terms of size, and he's no Statham in terms of
ability.
Yeah. But absolutely with range and deadliness, he can kill you from a mile off, he can kill you 2 feet in front of you. So overall, Stallone's just got that overall image and the sound as well. I could listen to that mumbling voice forever. There's no messing with that.
But I will add that Arnie is the only one out of these 3 that have bested an alien. Enough said.
Oh God,
That's an alien.
that's an alien.
True? Is that true?
Yeah, killed Predator.
Really?
Well,
But
yeah.
wait, so wait,
Pretty
is-
sure
is-
Sly hasn't done
has
it.
Stallone ever fought an alien?
Well, yeah, Predator is classed as an alien, I suppose. So you
No,
could
but
have that one.
Sylvester Stallone's never fought.
Stallone?
I would have thought he would have fought an alien at some
He
point.
has not been in a sci-fi movie, I'm sure, other than Dread.
Oh, Guardians 2.
Guardians 2.
Oh,
yes.
no, no, no.
Are we
Oh,
counting
no,
that?
no.
Oh,
No.
Maybe not.
Think.
Okay, fantastic. Well, post in your comments who you think won that round as to who's the best out of Sly Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Jason Statham.
So our second question today will be, which 80s and onwards action movie should be remade with an all-female cast? And I would like to kick this one off with Judge Dredd, but have any of you guys seen Altered Carbon?
Yes.
Well, the secondary character in that show, played by Martha Higarada, I think would be perfect to be replacing that Sly. Sorry about that, but she could replace Sly in that original Judge Dredd movie. I would say the Carl Urban one, but the Carl Urban one's just perfect. But I think she could pull off a pretty good Judge Dredd. She's got the the badass cop feel from that TV show,
Yeah.
and I honestly couldn't pick a better choice for that movie.
okay. That actually sounds very cool because I know from Altered Carbon where she does play a cop, she's very tenacious, very ferocious actress. She
loses it in a couple
strong,
of moments.
yeah, feminine. I think that's a really good. Yeah. Okay. What about yours too?
So mine is the mine is the reboot of the 1994 Arnie classic True Lies. However, I want to see Charlize Theron in that role, and I want to see Paul Rudd as the husband. The whole premise of the movie, if you're not aware, is that in the original, Arnie works for a United States counter-terrorism agency, and they're fighting against the Crimson Jihad, the terrorist group led by Salim Aziz. And essentially, there is this conspiracy around what Arnie's job is as Harry Tasker, his character's name, and then his wife, Jamie Lee Curtis, is trying to figure out what he does because she doesn't really know what he does for a living correctly. He tells her that he's an IT analyst, and then, of course, she finds out that he's actually a terrorist killer, and the action leads on from there. It is a fantastic action film, but a reboot with Charlize Theron, who's done many, many action films in recent years, Atomic Blonde, Mad Max, The Fast and the Furious, Aeon Flux, and then Paul Rudd can do action as well, because later on in that movie, Jamie Lee Curtis has to fulfill her action role as well. So I think Paul Rudd can move in from that sort of comedic sidekick husband, everyday man who stays at home, and then becomes the action star in the third and final act of the film.
From the moment you said Charlize Theron, like in that role, Atomic Blonde would be like, we've seen her play that role. It's so excellent. If she came from Atomic Blonde, that character, home to Paul Rudd, the husband, like that movie's already like half made. That's a really good. It fits so well, I think.
Yeah, and I think she can pull off the comedic aspect, and of course Paul Rudd will just sort of guide her through with that part. And then I just want to see like some kind of weird lap dance scene like Jamie Lee Curtis does, but with Paul Rudd doing it at the edge of a
That
bed.
really writes itself.
And
I like
that you could.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit of a comedy spin on this
Yeah.
kind of reboot. But if we're switching the roles, I want Charlize Theron to fill Harry Tasker's shoes in the True Lies reboot.
So I think out of all of us, that's probably going to be the most realistic.
Oh yeah, totally.
We can absolutely picture that. We can absolutely do that.
You go, El.
Bae Doona is a South Korean actress who is very special to me. She appeared in Cloud Atlas and Sense8 among many different roles. She was even in The Host, from which the director of just won the Best Picture for Parasite at the Oscars. In this movie, she plays a disgraced ex-Special Forces South Korean cop who moves to California, where she struggles with her dependency on maybe drugs and mental issues. She's partnered her new LAPD precinct with Rosaria Dawson from Zombieland 2 and Sin City. She's a by-the-book cop, but she's skeptical about the system itself. They play Riggs and Murtaugh. This is the female reboot, Lethal Weapon.
I'm down for this already.
Yeah.
Okay, so find it out. What do you think is your reason? Why would the female Lethal Weapon trump our movies?
Because it's fully serious.
Right.
Because Bae Doona, if you've ever seen her fight in Sense8, she is the female Bruce Lee. And I know Bruce Lee wasn't South Korea. I wasn't trying to make the South Korean. She's one of the best physical fighting women on screen I've ever seen. And I think this extends to Ripley, extends to Linda Hamilton from Terminator 2. This is a woman who is probably about 5 foot tall, I'm not sure, but is the closest thing we've ever had to Batman on screen.
Wow. So far I'm getting a theme of short people.
Yeah, well, coupled with Rosaria Dawson's intense passion and energy for everything that she does on screen.
Okay.
The simplest look can literally kill a man in every movie she's in.
Okay.
She's this amazing mix in Sin City of passionate and strong. And together, this is not a comedy movie. There is no comedy in this movie. They will be no jokes, no laughter. This is a very real movie with two very real opposite women. If you get Bae Doona acting as somebody with these real personal complex issues about systems of power,
right,
up against Rosaria Dawson, who can sympathize but also is part of this system, play that in an LAPD California background where they have to, I don't know, track down some dude or some woman or something.
Gary Busey?
Gary Busey back. He's back. He's back. Maybe it's like a business dude, or maybe he's an ex-cop in it or something like that. Maybe they have to track down the original Riggs and Murtaugh. They've gone criminal, I don't know. For me, it's a psychological thriller. It is not, and an action movie. It's going to be an action movie out the wazoo, but like it's an action movie. And I think with your movie, Stu, very realistic, but like I said, it's not been done, but the characters have been set out already. We know when you say Paul Rudd, there's only one role for him to play, and that's like weak, ineffectual, but charming man.
That's exactly what Jamie Lee Curtis's character is in the original.
Yeah,
but then she becomes the action star. He became Ant-Man. He became an action star in his later
He did,
years.
but isn't he still kind of a loser in Ant-Man?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, yeah. He falls into that trap, but he can adapt to any working relationship. So he can be paired up. What you're explaining about these two actresses is that they need to have, in Lethal Weapon, a dynamic force between them that pulls them together, like Mel Gibson and Danny Glover had. And I just don't think they would have that as much as Charlize Theron and Paul Rudd.
See, I'll concede that, but what I will say is it can only go so far with Charlize Theron and Paul Rudd. Charlize Theron and Paul Rudd are fantastic actors and actresses. They're brilliant, but they are not dynamic in the roles that you've put them in.
Atomic Blonde.
Atomic Blonde was a great movie. Nobody watched it because after the first 5 minutes, you kind of get it. Paul Rudd is, every character he plays is kind of a copy and paste to everything he does. Like even that show Living with Yourself that stars two of him. Yeah, they're both Paul Rudd. Okay, like they're both super Paul Ruddy. So I like your pitch, and I would watch that movie. I'd pay so much to see that movie because in my brain this is the most realistic movie, and it'd be a great movie. But to take Lethal Weapon, which is kind of just this buddy cop, it began as this buddy cop movie that I don't think people really felt strongly about, but it became like an iconic movie. This is a whole new spin on something that's very real and powerful.
I think I could see that working, but I don't know if this film could be called Lethal Weapon though, because if we're talking about it being remade with an obvious, because I kind of thought when we were on about being being remade with this all-female cast, it was going to be within the same vein. I couldn't see them calling it. I feel like this would be a totally different movie to Lethal Weapon. You couldn't. I don't think you could call it Lethal Weapon. I feel like it might be a movie already though. That sort of, with more of a complexity.
It is a very good pitch in terms of how it is a very good pitch as a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
But the title that Lethal Weapon holds behind it is action and comedy. It's a blend of the two.
Okay.
Because of the way that the characters just bounce off each other. Now, if that could work with the comedy aspect, then by all means, send it to Fox. They'll take it. I just would struggle with seeing that element on. I feel like Charlize Theron and Paul Rudd could fill the shoes of Riggs and Murtaugh better than these two.
Ooh, okay.
I really do.
Okay, well, what I'll say is, within Sense8,
by the way, I am going to withdraw my thing because I feel like you two fighting
No,
this out.
I want to hear your argument. I want to hear why
more.
Dredd needs another reboot after the call. I want to hear that.
Right,
we'll get to that.
But first,
I really want to hear that.
Bae Doona plays this as a very similar character within Sense8, where she's a person struggling with these paradoxical issues. She smokes, she fights, she behaves very much like Riggs. Is it Riggs? Riggs does in the original. She's a loose cannon. She's off the rails. She's unstable.
Okay.
And you could actually have some comedy in this with Bae Doona because she's very much this character in Sense8 as well. And she brings like a very powerful persona, especially in Cloud Atlas. So I can see where you come from. Yeah, you're right. I don't think I should have taken comedy out of it. I do think you're right that they would play a more better Riggs and Murtaugh if you're going for the traditional look at Riggs and Murtaugh. What I'm trying to do is hone in on what makes these characters special. Why Murtaugh is by the book, but why? Why Riggs isn't, and why? And extrapolate on that. Like, nobody really looks at Riggs from the first any of the Lethal Weapon movies and goes, "Oh, he's a damaged individual. He's just fun." Because he's played by a fun actor who can't do a lot of depth. He has done depth before, Mel Gibson. He's done a lot of depth, but not in this movie, not in these movies. What I think Bae Doona can bring to it is the depth, and she's also done comedy before, and also the fight scenes would be phenomenal. Phenomenal. Watching Bae Doona flip around 20 dudes is phenomenal. So I think that's my sort of pitch.
I could just imagine that happening while Rosario Dawson is just watching.
No, she's got a gun. She's
just comically watching.
We've seen her in Sin City with a machine gun. So
is she just like the Indiana Jones thing where she just pulls out the gun instead of like reasoning and fighting? She just like bang.
Well, she's skeptical of the system, so she approaches a suspect with a gun drawn, regardless of the situation.
Right.
So she's very skeptical. She's got like a year left until retirement. She's not old, but she's like she wants a career switch or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
She's saving up for a bakery. I don't know what the fuck.
But in the new Fast and Furious trailer, Charlize Theron flies a plane that has a magnet on it that lifts John Cena's Ford Mustang out of the sky because she's an action hero. In the same vein,
she's going home to Paul Rudd that night.
But then she's going home to Paul Rudd, which is a shame to shit on him.
You know what? I'll probably concede and say your pitch is better, but I think
I think yours would make a brilliant new movie. I just don't think it'll be a Lethal Weapon movie.
Right? Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen Sense8, but like, she really, I promise you, she really does play this Murtaugh character, like the origins of him. And I think like if you do such a copy and paste, because he's like mentally disturbed in these Lethal Weapon movies, and she just is that in every scene she's in with Sense8, and it's just, and she has this like Batman thing where, you know, you get her angry and this thing comes out where she's like a small skinny woman, but she's the most fearful presence in the Sense8 cast, and that includes like 2 massive dudes. They're like afraid of her because she's such a amazing presence. Honestly, it's unbelievably good, and I think that's if you fit that presence into a Riggs and Murtaugh sort of dynamic, where like even Rosario Dawson's like, oh my god, this woman is like insanely scary to me. I think that would work and make a fun dynamic to watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see the whole thing with Charlize Theron being like this mad gun specialist and weapons specialist, and then having to bring on the comedic thing. Although she is very honed in on the action more than the comedy. Not unlike how, if you guys remember a movie called Night and Day with Tom Cruise and Charlize Theron, where Tom Cruise did the comedic thing in that film, and I think it worked really, really well.
Not just Cameron Diaz.
Cameron Diaz.
In Night and Day.
Cameron Diaz.
I thought you said
Charlize. Sorry, not Charlize Theron. Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz in that movie.
Yeah.
And that's where that comedy is sort of flipped on its head, and that's what the kind of thing that I think Charlize Theron could do in that film. And then Paul Rudd just be like this guy who's realizing for the last 15 years that his wife has just got this double life, but then he has no choice but to buy into it, and he has to be part of the action in order to still sort of be with her and protect her as well, because he's trying to be the man, but she's way more masculine throughout the movie.
Okay, but my question in this is, what if you just deep faked it? What if you just pasted Charlize Theron's face onto Arnie and redid the she dubbed the lines? What new thing are we getting? What thing are we getting out of this? What are we coming to see in this?
It's about the dynamic duo between them. It's about the working and professional relationship that they have, but also that comedic aspect. So of course it is a female-led movie, remake of a classic action film as part of that whole hyper-masculine drive from the 80s and 90s that Arnie brought up. But then you are just putting in this new spin by having the action more central to realism. Plus, that movie, True Lies, was made around a time where terrorism wasn't as big a problem as it is now, and that would comment so much more on societal things, which I am going to go into as well in my my third answer, which is not this movie. But my argument is that those two can pull off the his and hers thing. Perfect blend between action and comedy, fighting, shooting, knifing, everything that you could ask for that you've seen Charlize Theron do previously. Driving, she drives the massive truck in Mad Max, and she lives to the end.
Do it,
with one arm. It's like perfect bring up of her as an action star.
Sort of like remake these movies, like maybe not too similar, but I'm thinking on like Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And what's that new the
similar?
The Brad Pitt one,
another
like a
one
couple of years ago. Was it Allied or like something like that?
Oh yeah, him and Marion Cotillard.
Yeah.
I think similar vein where it's the husband and wife thing, but because of True Lies having that comedic value, that really paid off. You even had like the side character with Bill Paxton in that one. You could have like another female figure in that role. I can't think of anyone at the minute. It'll probably come to me, but. Just to deliver on the quippy dialogue in this modern age, because that's one thing that these action movies from today are missing. Like Columbiana with Zoe Saldana. Yeah, that's like a modern day female action film. That didn't have any memorable dialogue in it though. That's what we're trying to create with these movies, with these female-led movies. So I think it may be a hard sell with Charlize Theron. I did have to think about her in that role, but I think she could pull off the action and then just balance perfectly with Paul Rudd.
I think that'd be really cool. I think both your ideas are really good.
Moving to your pitch.
Judge Dredd. Tell us why Sly didn't do a good job.
3 in 30 years. 3 in 30 years.
Okay. Because it was all his face and no Dredd mask.
That was a big problem. But if you're not aware out there, the character of Judge Dredd isn't supposed to remove his helmet. In the first 10 minutes of that movie, Sly Stallone removed his helmet because he needs his face to get paid for.
Yeah. Well... Just imagine a bit more of a sort of like yours, Al, with a bit more of a serious tone to it. I'm thinking of the moment where Sly gets exiled, doesn't he, in that movie?
That's right.
Yeah. Where and everything's kind of turned against him almost. But then could you just if you have seen Altered Carbon, could you see that when Martha Higuerada has been through such like physical torment.
She can act it.
You can't see her do that.
She's got the range. I'll give you. She's got the range, and I think probably she'd do a really good job with the role. But why? What are we getting out of this movie?
She can do the action. She can do the acting range for taking it into a more serious role. That Sly version, I don't take it that seriously. I feel like the Carl Urban one is way more.
Right, but we've got the Carl Urban one. Why do we need?
What if you put someone else in response and remade the Carl Urban one then? What if you put?
That's tough though.
What if you did? What if you put? I don't know. Who's a current female action star that could do that sort of thing in like the remake? Mila Jovovich. What if you put her in like the remake of Dredd and made it this really like art house grindy kind of dark
movie?
If
it was her, I would be expecting psychic powers to come out of nowhere.
But that is the Carl Urban one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm just curious, like, why? What do you think is maybe unexplored with Dredd that you want?
Because there are female
judges.
judges in
think
that universe.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the I don't know. I feel like they can add more. She could add more depth to it for sure. She could bring the character a bit more, or make the character a little bit more.
So you'd want to see
interesting in the Sly version of this.
So you'd want to see her
thing.
navigating the city. You'd want to see her going up against things she really can't handle but has to. You'd want to see,
like like you've seen all you've seen all the way through. The fight pit, the fighting pit that they get thrown into. That situation where they're trying to make her hurt him, or they're making each other fight each other.
She uses the robot arm.
Yeah,
that's great. It's
but
great
like.
Scene.
Just I'd like to see her in those situations. I could see her doing something like Dredd.
Throw her into the pit of a movie, just fight your way out. Yeah. I can see this.
Could she talk to a gun and tell it what ammunition it needs to load so that she can shoot it at the enemy?
Totally.
She talks to a lot of machines in that show. Yeah, absolutely.
I see the connection now.
Yeah, she can absolutely do
the
it.
lawgiver.
Yeah, the casting is good. I was just wondering about why the movie needs to be, why we need another Dredd movie.
If you could swap out the masculinity that Sly brought to the original one and then that kind of like cool darkness that Carl Urban brought to the reboot, you could certainly do that with femininity, but in still like a tough girl way.
No, I'm telling you, the casting on this is absolutely right. She can absolutely bring both the masculinity and the darkness.
If she can act that from mouth down, because that is all you've got.
This is a solid casting choice. Like, she was so impressive in Altered Carbon. She stood out so well.
Better than Joel Kinnaman, for sure. I'd definitely say.
Joel Kinnaman, he had an easy role to do for what he is. He had he had a tough guy role, and he's a tough guy. It's fine, no issues. Just stop, Anthony Mackie. Don't do it. Don't do it, Anthony. You just don't. They're dragging me away. They're dragging me away. I can't.
Well, as previously, that is the end of round 2. So post your comments in the section below on who you think would win the best female reboot of the action film. We've got Judge Dredd, True Lies, and
Lethal Weapon.
So
that brings us on to our third and final question. Our favourite 80s, 90s action movie. There's a lot to contend with here. There's a lot of good stars and a lot of good movies. There's a lot of bad good movies and there's a lot of bad good stars. For my personal choice, I'm going to be choosing Con Air, starring Nicolas Cage.
I didn't even think about that one.
What a movie.
I don't even have to pitch it. I just have to say that ex-army prisoner Nicolas Cage is flying on a plane with several other highly dangerous convicts. Fun ensues. Stu, what's yours?
Amazing. Let's hope we all have seen Con Air. Okay, my favourite, take you back to 1993. This was the epitome of action cinema back in the day, with one very big action star, one up-and-coming action star, and that was Demolition Man.
Oh, yeah.
So, Sylvester Stallone as John Spartan, Wesley Snipes as Simon Phoenix, Stallone is the police officer brought out of cryogenesis in the future to pursue his old nemesis in Wesley Snipes. However, society has changed. It's now non-violent. There's a massive comment on societal representations of just streamlining any negativity within the world. They ban smoking, bad language, pregnancy, red meat, guns. It's just this ridiculous society. But Stallone is an old sort of war Neanderthal veteran of the old age, right in the middle of that 80s and 90s action genre, whereas Snipes is just this absolutely mad villain who has a blonde flat top and he wears dungarees in the film, and he's just crazy about violence. He is like a serial killer brought into the new age who is also frozen from the past, and he wakes up and they just fight in the future. And there is quirky dialogue. There is a ridiculous end fight scene.
And there's Taco Bell.
Crazy costume. Yeah, Taco Bell.
Taco Bell makes a special appearance.
There's this hilarious sex scene with Sandra Bullock. It's just brilliant. I love that film to death.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's my favourite 80s and 90s action movie.
But the question is, do you know how to use the seashells?
Well,
how do you use the 3 seashells?
There is a way, but I'm not going to explain it because it's
an image.
Quite horrible.
There's an image for the paid subscribers. You'll be receiving.
Or there's always Google.
Okay, so Matt, what's your pick?
We went there. Well, mine is a little movie in 1987 called Predator.
Okay, all right, okay.
Now the they go into it's a classic Arnie action movie. They go into the woods, they go into the jungle to they're trying to stop a
They're trying to stop a coup on the militia that's killed their previous team.
I couldn't remember that. I can't remember that part of the movie.
That part isn't important.
But
really.
that's not important. That's like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah,
and then the rest of it is them trying to escape, trying to leave the jungle. But each one of them is getting picked off by this unknown entity, and which revealed to be the Predator, the alien. And then you get to see a wicked action scene at the very end between Arnie and the Predator, and it's just non-stop brilliant lines, very quotable. Like I said at the beginning, get to the chopper, and do it now. Other than that, I think this is it's not a perfect movie, but it's my favorite Arnie movie for sure.
Okay.
But listening to yours picks, I'd Demolition Man would have to win for me because I didn't think about it.
It is a classic. There is a scene at the end where the irony is that because they got out of cryogenesis, where they were frozen into the future, at the end fight scene, Snipes gets frozen by Stallone, and then Stallone is hanging off the crane, and as Snipes is frozen, stuck to the floor, Stallone kicks his head off before shouting, "Heads up!" And it is just the perfect way to kill the bad guy because of that whole running dialogue joke of, I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached. The dialogue throughout that film is so memorable. I can almost recite the transcript for that entire movie. It is an amazing balance of action and fight scenes with comedy and that idea of someone waking up in a different world. It's like Thor when he wakes up when he arrives on Earth, and, he just doesn't understand how the world works now, whereas John Spartan did understand how the world works. He's this old caveman, and then he wakes up in the utopian San Angeles, which is like the Santa Barbara and Los Angeles mixed together. And now they've merged it because it's all about unification now, and the world needs to be friendly, and everyone needs to be pally and stuff.
It's the way this world is going.
He doesn't exist in that universe. And what film can you take something where there's a machine on the wall, and every time you swear it gives you a fine? Isn't that just a genius little technological annoyance?
One thing I'll concede
put into a movie.
One thing I will concede between Con Air and Demolition Man is Demolition Man has amazing world building. The world built in Demolition Man is so fun and explorable, it kind of steals the attention of the movie. There's a weird helmets, there's the 3 seashells.
Yeah, the uniforms they have, it's crazy.
Like the phrase, the Taco Bell won the franchise wars.
Yeah, it's the only restaurant.
Tell me more.
And Schwarzenegger's the president as well.
Schwarzenegger the president. It's all great. But you mentioned cast. And, okay, I'll admit, Demolition Man has a great cast. But Con Air
has Nicolas Cage.
It's got John Malkovich. It's got Steve Buscemi. It's got John Cusack, Ving Rhames, Danny Trejo, Dave Chappelle.
Can't believe he was in that film.
Yep. He's got so many greats in that movie. Everyone's so great in that movie. So I would argue that the range supplied in that movie beats the range supplied in your movie by the actors. You've got a solid 3, right? You've got Sylvester Stallone, you've got
Wesley
Snipes, and you've got Sandra Bullock.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you beat me. I've only got Arnie and Carl Weathers.
you've got Carl Weathers without an arm,
tucked behind his shirt.
Yeah, very obviously. Do you need a comedic side character in an action film to make it more memorable?
If it's going to beat Con Air.
Does Con Air have that?
Con Air absolutely has that. Steve Buscemi
Does
was
Predator
the
have that?
funniest thing. No.
Steve Buscemi, isn't he like a child killer?
Yes, but it's hilarious. It's
Clink.
hilarious. And there's a lot of comedy in that movie. I mean, Dave Chappelle's in it. It's got to be funny, right?
Of course, he does have a role in that.
John Malkovich is doing it. Like even Nicolas Cage tries his hand at comedy in that movie
with his voice, his accent.
There's a line in that movie where like he's bringing a bunny home for his daughter, and one of the bad guys is like, he's found the bunny, and like he's
Give us your impression.
He's got this weird southern accent.
Put the bunny back in the
it's like,
box.
put the bunny back in the box.
The box.
Yeah. And then like his friend gets shot, and he's like, I am going to show you that God exists. Like, and like he goes and he like just walks up to this guy, and this guy shoots him in the arm. And he doesn't even look at it, but it's like the slightest graze.
Yeah.
What a great movie.
It is
most
very
of
good.
it takes place on a plane. The other part of the movie takes place with John Cusack, who's pretty in his prime at this point. It doesn't have much to do.
He has never.
John Malkovich, like, he's just Cyrus the Virus. Just what a great character.
He is.
Yeah, I would say overall the fun you can have in this movie is greater maybe than the fun you can have in Demolition Man. I'll concede that in Demolition Man it's a much better written movie, but the reason it's my favorite, the Con Air is my favorite.
It's got more charm.
Is because it's so wildly unpredictable. You know, at the beginning of the movie, of Demolition Man, you know that Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes are going to have it out, and probably he's going to win, right? Sylvester Stallone's going to win. With Con Air, you're just introduced to Nicolas Cage, and he gets on a plane, and then all hell breaks loose.
And this was when Nicolas Cage was in his action prime, wasn't it? With
sure,
Face Off and The
He's
Rock
got
as well.
muscles for days in this movie.
That is true.
I would
compared to Stallone and Arnie, though. I mean, don't get me wrong. These are those films, particularly Demolition Man and especially Predator, are very masculine with the action. You know, obviously they're over the top and stuff. You know, it's constant tank tops and biceps and oil.
Yeah.
Whereas Con Air is more of the action in a in the confined space, which does limit it to
combat is good.
To that.
The thing is, the combat within Demolition Man, it does use a lot of those like 80s, 90s techniques of it's kind of choppy. There's not a great deal of fist fight combat. There's not a great deal of gun.
No, they have them sticks that be like,
exactly, yeah. But I mean, with Con Air, I mean, there's a plane crashes into things. There's gunfire.
It crashes
everywhere.
into the Las Vegas Strip.
There's like a chase scene with a firefighting engine and stuff like that.
That end scene is amazing.
Like fires and there's like fist fights on airplanes and there's one scene where a plane drags a car down a runway. and it's like, and one of the police officers is like, that's my car, and it's like it's really very funny.
Can I just throw this out there? But which one came first? I'm thinking, was it Harrison Ford's Air Force One, or was it Nicolas Cage's?
I believe they were released in the same year, in '97.
They're not the same movie.
But they're not, because
no,
it's on a plane. They've got to take down.
One is Harrison President Ford, and the other is Nicolas Cage, ex-soldier killing machine.
I will argue that Gary Oldman is a much better villain than in Con Air, because it's Gary Oldman.
Oh, you're taking John Malkovich versus Gary Oldman.
I would say so. I like Gary Oldman in that movie.
I would have to. I think.
But can that argue with the Predator or with Wesley Snipes? Wesley Snipes is just crazy in Demolition Man. He's completely insane. There's that bit where he beats up all of the police when he's using like the ATM type machine because he's trying to buy a gun.
I like
and then
scene.
all the cops come up to him, but they don't know how to fight because there's no violence in the society. So he just kicks all their asses.
Stop there. No.
Yeah.
Please, we're asking you nicely.
Yeah. No, it's ask him again firmly.
But
it doesn't work.
But does your movie have Steve Buscemi like strapped down to this machine because he'll eat
very Hannibal Lecter
faces? It's just everything works about it so good because we've never seen Steve Buscemi be a villain / comedy actor before. It's his whole new world.
I can't argue with how he is made to be kind of scary in that movie.
Oh yeah, he's terrifying. But then it's like there's a thing where he's sat at a table with a little girl and they start singing, "We've got the whole world in his hands," and then it cuts to him on the plane. I think he's got the doll that she had. And we're like, oh no. But then we cut down and see she's alive. I'm like, oh god. But it's so funny.
That's right.
Yeah.
In terms of action then, where does Predator stand against these two films, Matt? Give us your argument.
I've got
it's more tense than both of ours, I'll say that.
I think watching it the first time, it is definitely a lot more tense than Demolition Man and Con Air. I would argue that the action is definitely better than Con Air. But I think actually I'm thinking that Predator loses to Demolition Man in its action. But
what was the big fight with what were they doing in the big fight from Demolition Man?
At the very end,
Yeah, that was the
they're fighting
fight, right?
back at the laboratory.
Yeah, I remember that. But they're like fighting hand to hand. They're punching. They're
Yeah.
kicking. They're okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
There's a fist fight at the end that they have before he gets frozen and he kicks his head off. But there are several fights throughout the movie. There's a lot of what I like in these action films is when you have like these really like the subordinate bad guys and one guy beats up like 6 of them in one go. That's like a good fight scene because you get to see like what moves they can do, what they're capable of.
Okay.
So I'm thinking in the Predator, there's only like apart the fight with the militia. There's that. Which is just a generic action
shootout.
just an action shootout. But then you've got
Arnie does lift a truck in that movie.
Yeah, he does. And then
they have that epic handshake.
See, and that's
as well.
why
the handshake.
And that's why, audience, Arnie beats Sly.
Oh god, we're back.
Anyway.
We're getting points from round 1.
Anyway, but there's the fight with the militia in the jungle, and then most of the movie it's them getting picked off one by the Predator, and then there's the bit where I think I can't remember the actor's name, Billy, when he stands on top of the tree trunk.
Yeah.
And he's like,
he cuts himself as like a warrior thing.
Waits for to fight the Predator, and you just hear the scream
But then
in the
he just
background. But then the Predator's like, he hunts down Arnie, but it's just before it's not really a fight, but it's that bit where he's just trying to survive.
Yeah,
when he finds out the
tension.
mud when he's covered in the mud, the alien can't see him, and then that leads into the great finale fight scene. There's only that, I would argue there's only one really tense great fight scene.
A lot of that film is you could argue the genres of science fiction and horror like intertwine with the action massively, because what I like in an action film is fighting over shooting. There is an awful lot of shooting in Predator. There's that amazing scene where all of them are just shooting at the jungle, and they waste all their ammo. He's got the minigun and all that. But in terms of like action, I think you do want to see like the fight scenes. So like when you said at the start, like Jason Statham, people like him and Jet Li who can do like martial arts, Mortal Kombat, that kind of thing. That to me is like action in a movie, like in fight scenes in like The Raid.
Yeah.
Or John Wick.
Or John Wick.
John Wick. Yeah.
I think The Raid may be over that though, in terms of like fighting. Not like shooting and just killing.
The coordination.
Like an actual fight scene, like something like I really like the fight scene from Troy as well. Or Old Boy, like films like that where you actually see the style and the kind of way that it's shot, and it really captures like the impact of the hits and stuff that they do.
Well, this is my argument from you're watching Wesley Snipes fight Sylvester Stallone. I have no memory of that fight. I know where it's set. I know what it looks like. I know what they're both wearing. I have no memory about the coordination or the fight style they used. This is why I personally prefer Con Air, because you there's a moment where the electric guitar starts playing. You see the plane taking off.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone's cradling his dying friend. He's like, I am gonna show you there is a God. Like, and he's like walking up, and he gets shot in the shoulders. Like, he punches dudes in the face. He's going at it. It's raw. It's real emotional. That is something more I can connect with more than Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes fighting it out. And I just don't remember the fight. I just don't remember anything spectacular coming out of that fight. I know, like you said, the way that he kills him at the end, I remember that, but there's no like specific fighting style I remember.
Like for Demolition Man though, it might be more the satisfaction of defeating this crazy guy, because he is nuts.
And he's like an old nemesis from years ago. It's,
they set
get
it up well.
Yeah, and they get frozen for 70 years, and then the fact that they come out and that whole element is really interesting, but it's not part of the actual action of the movie. But then the stars that are in these movies, I think Nicolas Cage is a hard action star to sell because of his lack of it that he's had since that mid-90s period where he made those 3 movies with Face Off, The Rock, and Con Air.
Yeah, he wasn't even like the main guy in The Rock.
Whereas
he wasn't the guy.
By 1987, Arnie had built up the status as an action star with Conan, the Terminator, and even like the Hercules in New York film, if anyone remembers that, where he got dubbed over, which is just hilarious if you've ever seen dialogue from it. And then Sly was well into the action phase there. He'd made 5 Rocky movies. He'd made 3 Rambo films. Yep. He'd already done Over the Top and Tango and Cash as well.
Can't forget Cliffhanger.
And Cobra, and then Cliffhanger was the same year as well. So he was building onto the action franchise as best he could and mixing it all up. up. Like in Cliffhanger, he literally does climb up a mountain, and then there is like one fight scene at the end, which is in a helicopter dangling over the edge of the cliff, which is incredible. Over the top arm wrestling. Judge Dredd shoots people after he talks to his gun.
Yeah.
Tango and Cash partnered with Kurt Russell. I think there's this real mixture that you get with Stallone. Now, don't get me wrong, you also do get that with Arnie. I do think you get that with Arnie. So that's why it was very hard for me when I was picking the answer for question 1 to either choose Arnie or Stallone. But I do prefer Stallone because of that range that I get there. Not in terms of acting range, just in terms of what he's capable of as a human being and his characters that he is. He's sort of like the most dangerous.
Trying to steal points away from me here, aren't you?
Well, what I'll say in regards to...
Over Nicolas Cage, though. I mean, yeah, Nicolas Cage is good, but he's no Arnie or Sly.
Well... He was
Man.
cheesy in that role. I'll give you that. He wasn't like...
It was a fun film,
It was
though.
a fun...
Con Air is so much
it's
fun.
hilarious.
I love that film.
Yeah, it's brilliant. With regards to like action, I mean, obviously it's going to come down to, Nicolas Cage versus Stallone versus Arnold Schwarzenegger, and like I feel like I'm going to get left out again. But what I will say is that you're right. He hasn't done as much. So, like I said with Jason Statham, he is doing more with less. Like the fact that we can contend that Nicolas Cage, who's in this film swole, strong, heroic, patriotic, is very believable in the character that he's playing.
Oh yeah,
it's a little bit insane, but it's Nicolas Cage. But the fact that we can believe that, and especially with this accent he's bringing on as well. Once again, my guy can speak English.
You've got a real thing with that, haven't you?
I have it. It's the one point I can make. But regards to like say The Predator, for example, I mean, what I'll say about that movie, the action in that movie, is it starts almost immediately and doesn't stop until the end of the movie, and it's very tense and it's very sort of minimal, and there's this fear that creeps over you, and it's very like Jaws-y, like it's like from like similar to Jaws. There isn't a lot of action though, is there?
No,
there's
there
not
isn't
a lot of
action.
fighting. There's like setting traps. There's like it's more to do with like it's more
It's
a survival
film.
movie. Yeah. And with Demolition Man, I think you get the most fun out of that movie from the parts that aren't action. You get to see this the world in Demolition Man is so much better than any of the worlds that we've said from our movies. It's amazing. It's just a great little movie with like all these different things thrown into it, and it's like sci-fi, and it's kind of like talking about the future of humanity and what the current societal issues are. And I feel like the action stuff is kind of outside of that. Like it's kind of not like they make one comment at the beginning, like, "Oh yeah, we've eradicated all crime," but then there's crime in the movie, obviously, when the fights go down. But that's just kind of like a side part of the movie. Like I'm very happy to watch Sylvester Stallone go to Taco Bell. or meet with Dennis Leary in the underground sewers and eat rats. Yeah. Like I'm very happy to watch all that, and it doesn't have to be action. So I think when I sort of prefer Con Air, which is very, very action heavy, with amazing star-studded cast, I would say I prefer it as an action movie. But I do think I prefer Demolition Man as a movie.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. Okay, that's interesting. So what are your guys' final thoughts on your choices for best action star, your female reboot, and your favourite action film of the 80s and onwards? Matt, you go first.
Well, I don't need to say anything about my first one because Arnie wins. Arnie is an instant victory.
He's the biggest dude.
He's the best choice. Vote for Arnie. He will be. He's just superb. The second one.
That jaw.
That jaw. You can't beat it.
But you can't beat Sly's lip.
I think that jaw wins that lip. You know.
Jaw defeats lip. Okay. Versus Nicolas Cage's hair.
Oh. Yeah,
I think that
we haven't mentioned this hair.
Nicolas Cage's hair.
No, that might be the jaw and the lip. No, go on. What's your final thoughts on your choices?
So yeah, I can't say anything more about my first one. Arnie's just super. Just vote for him. He's the best. He's the best one. He's better than Sly. Question 2, I would say Martha's Dread movie. That would be I think it would be great. She's a terrific actress. She could pull it. She can pull off action. She can pull off that real need to survive, and the
struggle.
The struggle.
She can
win. She can win that. But the final one, Predator's a great movie. I personally love it. It's I'd argue not the best Arnie film, but it's definitely up there for its intensity, its action, its final conflict. That we've said it's not got much action, but not too much action, but it has probably one of my favorite action scenes in all these 80s movies that we've mentioned, 80s, 90s, 2000 movies we mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so I've taken the road less travelled. I know Arnold Schwarzenegger and I know Sylvester Stallone have a lot to bring to any audience, but what about the roads less travelled? What would we have if we didn't have Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger? We'd have a great Jason Statham. We'd have a wonderful reimagining of Lethal Weapon, and we'd have more appreciation for Con Air, and it truly deserves it. I picked all these options because I sat down and thought, okay, we've got the obvious choices here, but what really can we get into with what's already been set? We can get into Jason Statham kung fu kicking a door open on a dude. Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger couldn't do it. They just can't do it. They haven't got the muscly men, the strong, big, muscly men. They could never do that. Never. Number 2, we've got Lethal Weapon with more realness. Women in a masculine role, or what's seen as a masculine role, can bring so much more of a dynamic to it while keeping the same comedy the same. And I've chosen 2 actresses that aren't your traditional white American because I think that brings another edge to it as well. And you can put comedy in there, you can put action, you can put drama in there. There's so much to explore with that. And my 3rd choice, Con Air, it's just a fun, brilliant, fun movie. Like, it's just a great movie. The end.
Amazing. Okay, well, yeah, I'll argue over those 2. I think Sly can deliver this versatile impact on action. He's got the all-rounder in terms of danger. He can punch, he can kick, he can swing a TV round by its cable and hit Wesley Snipes in the face with it while shouting, "You're on TV!" He can pull off Judge Dredd. As much as you said that should be remade again, I still think that sits within a time of a perfect kind of era of just silliness. And yeah, I think he probably regretted doing that movie, but overall, it has a pretty aesthetic, even though it's a little bit janky. Cobra, the deadliest cop in Los Angeles, over the top. You don't want to mess with those muscly biceps. Absolutely. In terms of the female reboot of True Lies, give me the dynamic between the action star and the comedy star to switch the film on its head entirely. Have it so it's from the wife's perspective. Have Paul Rudd as this, just really kind of awkward and mysterious, kind of wondering what's going on with his wife and being all like weird around her and their daughter and stuff. And Charlize can bring that action element like she has done in the past 10 years with these action films that I listed earlier. And then Demolition Man as the best film. As you mentioned, the world building is very nice, very pretty to look at. It's built up a lot of history, and you kind of gauge what's gone on in this 70-year gap from when they were frozen. But then the action is a little bit of a blend with the shooting and fighting. The final fight scene, it is a little bit rushed, I will say that. It's got a great sort of final kill at the end, as we've mentioned before, and you can't go wrong with crazy Wesley Snipes. Crazy Wesley Snipes pulls that off compared to any other movie that he's done previously.
He takes no prisoners, he pays no taxes.
Exactly. Perfect description of him. And yeah, the comment on the societal issues as well is really interesting, as well as just their names and how they look. John Spartan, Simon Phoenix. Whoever named them needs like promotions for days, because that is just genius.
Whoever wrote that world, honestly, let's give them more to do.
It's absolutely.
Good. It's good.
So good arguments, guys. Really enjoyed that one, and post your comments down below as to who you think won those 3 rounds. We'll look forward to hearing your answers. Thanks again for listening to 1.5 Degrees. I'm Stu.
I'm El.
And I'm Matt.
And we'll see you again next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.